Okay, thank you all for being here, and thank you for the FDA to organize the IOM to have this important dialogue, and thanks to the IOM for all their hard work in putting this together. I believe I'm the last speaker, and that's a hard position, so I'll try to keep you all awake. Our investigative team at the University of Maryland recognized that the consumption of highly caffeinated energy drinks was associated with risk-taking behavior back in 2006. And at that time, we submitted remarks to a public FDA hearing on functional foods on December 5th of that year. Today, I'd like to share with you some new additional evidence that has accumulated since that time and that has raised concerns among public health professionals worldwide about the possible contribution of energy drink consumption to risk-taking behavior that ultimately impacts health and safety of adolescents and young adults. First, I'll present new research in the field of developmental neuroscience that has shed light on the complex changes that take place in the brain from adolescents ages 13 to 18 all the way through the early 20s. Second, I'd like to share evidence showing that high levels of caffeine in the new ways that are consumed in new products that are available that might exacerbate the health risk-taking behaviors of adolescents. And because of the amount of time that I have to that end, I'll highlight the results of our own prospective research on that topic. And then lastly, I'll discuss the implications for this new research evidence for protecting and promoting adolescent health. Dr. Roberts and Dr. Temple both alluded to the fact that adolescents are different with respect to their neurodevelopment. We have learned so much in the past 20 years, and most importantly in the past 10 years, about the human brain and about how these complex and functional changes occur through the early 20s. These changes partially explain why adolescents are more likely than older individuals to engage in risk-taking behavior, and perhaps less likely to fully recognize the consequences of such behavior. And anyone in the audience who has a teenager, I think, knows what I'm talking about. Moreover, adolescents appear to be more susceptible to the rewarding properties of substances. This body of research helps explain the long-established, robust finding that early use of substances predict the increase in risk of addiction in adulthood. In short, there is an inherent vulnerability of the developing brain to psychoactive substances. Several naturalistic and one experimental study that I could locate have clearly demonstrated that indeed energy drink users are more likely to engage in risk-taking behavior. Many forms of risk-taking behavior have been studied, as shown on this slide, everything from drug use to sexual risk-taking, alcohol use. Mixing energy drinks and alcohol is its own risk-taking behavior. I threw in anxiety and sleep quality because this is an important behavior. It's not necessarily a risk-taking behavior, but it's an important thing to measure in adolescents. And also, most recently, Peacock et al. Has studied risk-taking in the laboratory with an analog measure called the BART, the Balloon Analog Research Test. So what I'd like to do, and before I get off of this slide, I'd like to point out that the frequency of energy drink use among the studies that I was able to locate that specifically focus on risk-taking behavior are studying college students, but the prevalence estimates of how much energy drinks are being consumed among this age group is a lot higher than what was alluded to earlier. So one of the things that came to my mind as I was listening to this morning's discussions is that those snapshot measures of 2-day or 7-day frequency may not capture past year, past month use. And one of the data gaps that I'll be talking about tomorrow is the lack of assessment methods that we have, and the lack of valid assessment methods for energy drink consumption. But some of the more recent studies are showing prevalence estimates of up to 83% in the past year, 57% in the past week. And we've shown a 65% annual increase in our own data. So like I said, because I don't have too much time, I am going to only highlight the work of our study, a prospective study. I think Jennifer Temple said something about how there's no prospective data available to look at the relationship between energy drink use and subsequent use of other drugs. Well, we have that kind of data. We've been studying a cohort of 1,200 students with a response rate of 85% now in their 8th year. And we've been looking at the relationship between different types of substances and the increase in the use of other substances as time goes on. So I think our own prospective epidemiologic data are the only data that has measured energy drink consumption over time in a large sample of young adults. But I don't think parallel data exists in adolescents. But guided by our look at the literature and guided by prior research that use of caffeine might exacerbate the underlying vulnerability to the use of other substances, we were interested in the question of whether or not energy drink use in the 2nd year of college, and we've measured them all the way through, where 23% of the sample used energy drinks, we were interested in whether this energy drink use predicted incident or new use of other drugs in the following year. And we had standardized measures of all these other drugs. And what we found was that after adjustment for sex, demographics, socioeconomic status, importantly, a very important personality variable called sensation seeking, and other types of caffeine use, the use of energy drinks in year 2 predicted frequency of tobacco use in year 3, increases in that, and the incident non-medical use of prescription stimulants and prescription analgesics. This gives you a little bit more detail about the adjusted odds ratios associated with this. I have the references at the back, but this was published. And the adjusted odds ratio is about 2.5 for stimulants and about 1.5 for analgesics. And just to descriptively let you know, 8.2% of the non-energy drink users started using prescription stimulants in the following year, compared to 18.8% of the energy drink users. Compelling? We thought so. So what are the implications of this evidence? New evidence from developmental neuroscience underscores the inherent vulnerability of the developing brain to psychoactive substances through the early 20s. I think that's pretty accepted among developmental neuroscientists. The balance of evidence in the scientific literature supports that the levels of caffeine present in the products today, in the way that they are consumed, are associated with increases in health risk behaviors. I submit that the addition of caffeine to the beverages at these levels present in most energy drink products has not been demonstrated to be safe with regard to health risk-taking behaviors in adolescents and young adults. And while we need more research using longitudinal prospective designs that address the complex interactive relationships, there is reason for concern because there are no studies that demonstrate the safety of high levels of consumption of caffeine from energy drinks in the way that they are consumed by adolescents and young adults today in this historical context. Until evidence has been presented that demonstrates safety, actions to change the current regulations on these products are warranted and to protect and promote the health of the public in general and the health of adolescents in particular. Thank you.